Hey there, how's it going? It's been a tough week. I didn't have work for the first time in almost a decade, and I was hoping to be all productive and crap, but in reality, I've kinda been in a state of shock, with anxiety attacks sprinkled in for good measure. And I know it's the same for a lot of other people at the moment. So to anyone else that's battling with anxiety issues right now like me, hang in there. You aren't alone, and we can get through it. I've had to start spacing out my projects because I find it hard to focus on any one thing for too long. So I've been bouncing around with a bunch of different things, just trying to make small progress here and there. Let's take a look at what I've been able to do on Monkeys with Guns. And I'm just going to start off by saying I'm sorry I didn't get back to AI this week. It just seemed like too much to work on, so I didn't. I was able to overhaul and simplify the way my menu options work though. In the beta version that's available right now, the menus were added in a bit of a rush. I spent a good while just sitting down trying to figure out how to update what I already had and make it better. To really get it all fleshed out, I started easy with the initial setup layouts since they really only have two options. User experience is something I care a lot about. I want to make sure interacting with the game is as easy as possible for the players. The challenge with a game like this on PC is that you really can't know what players will have in terms of hardware, so you kinda gotta make sure that it works with everything. For me, I believe the ideal way to play is for every player to have a gamepad. So I definitely have to make sure that the menus work with gamepads, of course. I started with having it where you just push the A button on an Xbox controller or the B button to say yes or no, but then I realized that would be confusing later when there are more than two options. So I switched it up a bit, and here you can see that the player can use the analog stick or D-pad to make a selection, and then press the accept button to close, which is the A button on an Xbox controller. I haven't found a way in Construct to auto-detect what type of gamepad is connected, albeit I haven't really looked that hard. So I use an icon indicator that shows the four face buttons that are standard on pretty much all gamepads. The button labels may change with each, but the position stays the same, at least with all the ones I've tried. Keyboard inputs work pretty much the same as the gamepads. Arrows to pick your selection and enter to confirm. For these beginning layouts as well, I added in the ability to press Y or N on the keyboard. It just makes and confirms that selection when it's pressed. And on top of that, I've also had several requests for the ability to use the mouse on the menus as well. Menus seem so straightforward at first, why does it always get so complicated so quickly? And I want to set this all up once so that way no matter what layout I'm on, the menus will work this way. I've finessed the method of menus I've been using for a little while now, and it's been working pretty well. Any page that has menu options will also have a menu manager sprite associated with it. This sprite holds instance variables that are used by the menu option functions. It keeps track of things like how many selection options there are, what is currently selected, what phase of the menu you're in, as well as a few more things. Everything else is controlled by two functions. One to update the appearance of the selectable objects, or sprite font, which also got a pretty decent overhaul. The alpha version of the game used images for all text objects. I like the control it gave me to be able to stylize it in Photoshop and then place it in the game. But as expected, it was very limiting and took a lot of effort to change or update. So for the beta, I instead went with using two different sprite fonts. One that's white with a black outline for the selection, and another that's black with a white outline for the other options. And this worked alright, but it meant managing two sprite fonts for every option, and it was kind of a pain in the butt at times. Then I realized if I just pulled the drop shadow from the sprite font images, I could pretty easily just invert the colors to get the same effect, all while only using one sprite font per option. With that simplified down, I also started looking at a spacing issue I've had with the sprite fonts for a while. Construct allows you to set custom widths for each character, but for some reason my spacing was always weird on wider letters like M or W. I would change the spacing, but it only seemed to affect after the character. Turns out I just completely misunderstood the way sprite fonts work in Construct. I don't know if this is the same in every program, but for some reason I thought that all of the cells were center oriented, meaning that if I changed the width, it would close the cell in based on the center, cutting from the left and right. I don't know why I thought this. Literally nothing has worked this way since I began learning development. I think it's just the designer in me that wanted everything to be center aligned. But in reality, everything actually needs to be left aligned. And once I did that, I was able to control the spacing the way I wanted, which is great. Okay, I got way off topic there. I was talking about the two functions which control everything. One is update selection. The selection is tracked on the menu manager as a number assigned to each group of options. For example, here there are two numbers that can be selections, 0 and 1. And this can work with any number of options, but for here we just have the 2 to keep it simpler. When the update selection function is called, it passes the new selection number as a parameter. Then, for each of the selectable sprite fonts, if their ID is the same as the parameter, they get set to display normally. Otherwise, their colors are inverted. This way, I can update the selection with any of the input methods by calling the function and setting the new selection. For gamepads and keyboards, I make it so pressing a direction will either add or subtract from the current selection number. Also, if the mouse is over one of the selectable objects, the function is called and sets the new selection to the ID of the option the mouse is over. The second function is for making an actual selection. This works similar to the update where the function is called and the ID is passed as a parameter. But it also passes another parameter for the phase. The phase is what tells the function where we are in the game and what it needs to do. For example, in the phase using_KB, which is the phase that's asking if you're going to be using a keyboard or not, if you select yes, which is ID 0, the menu manager will be set to the next phase. The using keyboard boolean will be set to true, meaning that the game now knows players will be using the keyboard for gameplay. It waits a short moment and then sets the flag to allow the player to act again. I tried to simplify and streamline this down as much as I could so it would be easy to use moving forward. I don't have any animation triggers set yet like I do in the beta, where the options will enter and exit the screen. But with the way this is set up, I can trigger all that on the phase change, and all I should have to do is move letting the player act again into that section as opposed to being in the function. Overall, I'm pretty pleased with the outcome so far. Again, I was not motivated in the slightest this week, so be able to get this much done actually does feel pretty good for me. And I'm sorry, I know this doesn't have the most interesting visuals, but it is something that's really needed for me to even move forward with anything else that I'm doing. And this will be a really solid foundation for me to keep moving forward and build the visuals and everything else on top of. And that's pretty much all I got done on Monkeys with Guns this week that I'm ready to talk about. Before I go, I wanted to say a sincere thank you for all the well wishes and positivity I received after my last devlog. The indie game dev community really is amazing, and I'm immensely grateful to be considered part of it. With some of the free time I have coming up, I'm going to try and make more videos with smaller projects because right now it's really hard to keep focused on Monkeys with Guns. I'll still be making this once a week devlog, but I don't think I'll get as much progress done on it as I kind of hoped at first. It's just really hard to work on the game right now, mostly because the core of the game is kind of the antithesis of what the world needs right now. It's a game meant to bring people together, and at the moment that's just not what we need. And I'm also doing a lot of not very exciting work on it right now. So I will keep working on it, but it's not going to be the sole thing I'm working on in a week. I'm also going to try out streaming someday this week. I don't have a day or time yet, and I'm sure the first couple will just be me figuring it out, so I won't post about it on YouTube. But I will be posting on my Twitter and Discord when I figure it out. And my plan is to work on some art for Monkeys with Guns on those streams. And I think that's all my updates for now. Thank you all very much for watching, and I hope you are safe and healthy. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave them below, message me on Twitter, or join the Discord. Links are all in the description. You can get the beta of Monkeys with Guns or play any of my other games at vimlark.itch.io. If you enjoyed this, please consider liking and subscribing, and I will talk with you next time. Have a good one. Later.